So I'm basically trying to determine whether my materials are the best and better than anybody else's materials. And so what I normally do is I just use my own judgment from the Queensland papers on what's difficult, and I have a good look through everything and make sure that all my materials cover everything that's tested. But the Victorian papers are slightly better in that they actually give you the numbers. So you can see exactly what everyone's getting wrong. So I'm typically looking for anything that's sort of less than 30%. Often most questions are 50 to 70% of students getting full marks. And this gives me a really good idea of what students are weak at. Now, the humorous thing is it's often repetitious, and what people are getting bad marks in the previous year, the same question pops up the next year and students still get it all wrong. And these questions are the same also for the Queensland papers. So if I just cut to the chase. So the three main areas were basically the presence of isotopes here. So the presence of isotopes for these, not for this one here, these sort of questions where there's just a little peak that's higher or lower than it should be. There's also, the second one is also these bands, whether the OH band comes from an alcohol or a carboxylic acid or some other molecule. And the third one is the complex carbohydrates, knowing how to describe those well, especially if they're branched or chains, and whether they're accessible by enzymes or soluble. So they're the three main things. I'll put those up there on the screen. And I've gone through 4 different papers, and I sort of stopped there because when you do research, the thing they tell you to do when you're doing research is once you start to get, when you finish your research is when things get repetitious and you start seeing the same things over and over and over again. So I was thinking of stopping after 3 papers, but I went back all the way down to 4, so 2022 to 2019. And they're the 3 main things I came up with. And so when I'm trying to judge if my stuff's better than others, and I've done this throughout this year, and it literally takes me 60 seconds. I know exactly where to look. So I know exactly what the weak points are, and I can quickly look at someone's resources or an external publisher's resources, and I'll see whether they've covered it or not, and then I can quickly tell if it's good or not. Because if they don't cover it, obviously they're not going to get 100% on the test. And so that's how I do it, and that's how I do it so quickly. So just going through, you can see I've pointed out all the ones that get really low marks, and those 3 things I've mentioned. How can I summarize that? Isotopes, carbohydrates, and mass spectrometer, so spectrometer. Apart from those, I'm going to skip those. I'll just flick through them, let you see them all. The only other thing that I found rather interesting was the Victorian paper obviously has got some differences, so I didn't put any of the HPLC chromatography. I didn't put the stuff that's just not the Queensland way of doing things. I've skipped them, although I left some of the experimental questions in there because they could still kind of be asked. So this one's just about detail. That's not too significant. Some stuff's vastly outside the syllabus. And, the 3-mark questions were obviously sort of the God mode questions. So here we go, the carbohydrates again. So just going through it, this one, even stuff that's not in our syllabus, they're big on the vitamins and stuff. I think that the material that the Queensland students have, if we just get the structure, if we have the data booklet, we can actually answer all these questions. Even the HMNR, even though you haven't been taught it, I pretty much assume the Queensland students could fully complete the Victorian paper anyway, which is nice. This one was very humorous because it's happening in Queensland too. It's just such an easy question. It's just a simple amide there, and everyone's getting it wrong. All right, heaps of practice on the website for those. I don't know why people are just so terrible at them. You can't get easier than that. It doesn't even have several it's not even polyfunctional, which I've never seen on a test, even in IB. And so there we go. That's repetitious again. Just have a look at that answer there. I'm not really that concerned about God mode. I've done a video on that. I'll put that up in descriptions or something. This one's really interesting. I've had professional arguments many times about this one. I claim that in one of the IB mark schemes, which is decades and decades and decades ago, I can't find it. There's thousands of IB mark schemes. And that there is, the answer here is 0.73, but they've gone for greater. So for electrolysis and galvanic cells, there's internal resistance. They've called it overpotential, but it's just easier to say that there's internal resistance in the circuit. So when you're giving a number of what it should be, it is wiser to say in brackets, this could, the voltage needed will be less if it's galvanic because of internal resistance, or you may need a higher voltage electrolysis due to internal resistance. That's God mode to the point of being probably more than what most teachers actually know. And I've argued about whether that exists or not. I've said I've seen it in a mark scheme, and now I have proof of it. I did have it in my IB notes. I removed it from my ATAR notes. Maybe I should put it in there, but if you're watching my videos, you'll catch things anyway, okay? And you'll catch it there. All right, God mode is to assume internal resistance. And I wouldn't say greater than 0.73. I would actually say 0.73 and then make a statement to say it could be greater. And that should get you the mark. So complex unfamiliar, fine. I'm not too worried about that. This one sort of shocked me that Victorian has a lot of experimental questions where we do more of a science experiment, 20% internal assessment, but they're really bad at it. They're really easy answers, what I would think in a student experiment, and done quite badly. So that was just for interest. So I'm not really concerned about talking about those ones. That was just badly done, but it's fairly straightforward. Bit of complex unfamiliar, and a bit more complex unfamiliar too with the isotopes. They wanted a specific example as well, not just to say isotope, but give the actual element, or the mass number really. So say it's got an extra neutron or whatever. Okay, so definitely a few evidences of God mode. I wouldn't say the 3 points I've picked up, the isotopes, the carbohydrates, and the IRs, is God mode. But besides God mode, those three things seem to just pop up, and it doesn't even matter the fact I'm telling you, because it was in the previous paper and then the very next paper, and people are still getting it wrong. And that's Victoria, who apparently have higher standards than Queensland. So I'm thinking of doing some review videos and looking at various publishers, because they advertise a lot saying their stuff is so good. If I get time for that, that's great. If I don't, it doesn't really matter. You can judge for yourself. Use this video and ask yourself, do their materials cover these things? You can be sure mine does. And give me some sort of notes in the comment if you think they are missing anything. All right, thank you.